Indian men sometimes use, the tag of being polyamory to sort of also cheat on their wives and girlfriends.
How do you control Indian men? I was visiting Australia once, and my mama looked at me and told my mom and my parents, "Okay, I think you should get him tested and see." It's like, no, there's nothing wrong with him. He's not crazy. Yeah, but why is my stool?
More comfortable for you to talk about than my ADHD.
Hell, that is so awkward, right? People are just like, oh, everybody has a little bit of ADHD. I'm like,
No.
queer part was actually easier for me than the polyamory part, right?
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Feel Fuzzy podcast. And for those who are new here, Feel Fuzzy is a mental health care community that we're building, which makes mental health care accessible and affordable and informative for everyone. And we bring in a lot of diverse guests on our podcast, which offer an insight into their mental health journey. And today we have Aashish Mehrotra. So welcome to our podcast, Aashish.
Thank you for having me.
Excited to have you. A lot of you may know him on the internet already, and for some of you who don't, Ashish is the owner of the Sangya project that create intimacy products, and he has been really vocal also about sex, intimacy education, safe sex practices, and he's been very vocal about his polyamory relationship, him being queer, etc. And I just feel like it's so important to have a person like you on the podcast to take us a little bit through your journey and just destigmatize talking about these things, right? So, uh, welcome, and please, if you want to, tell something about yourself.
I am the co-founder of Sangya Project because the owner part makes it feel like I'm the sole, but we're a tripod, like I like to call it. It's me, Shweta, and Tanisha, which hold up Sangya Project as it is. Sangya Project was Tanisha's core idea, which me and Shweta gave life to at a certain point, and we all have our own rules. And it's been a wild journey, and like for everyone around, I'm sure it all ignited from the whole COVID fiasco. Like it was very small term to give what a life changing event that was for the world, but that's what ignited a lot of changes in our life when it comes to the way we look at mental health, the way we look at sexual health, the way we look at our own careers as well. And that's how we are where we are at this particular moment, redefining ourselves and redefining what safe happiness and contentment looks like for everyone around us, and including us.
Yeah, that's such a great point because I feel like all of this is in a way completely connected, right? Like we usually when we're talking about wellness and health, we sort of look at physical health separately, we look at sexual wellness and health separately, and we look at mental health separately, and it's sort of all of it just kind of affects each other and impacts each other. And it's so important for us to sort of overall look at a person's well-being when we're talking about these things. So I'm really glad that you in the first place also talk about your queer identity or being in a the tripod that you call it, being in a polyam relationship. The fact that you've been doing it so vocally and so publicly, I think has helped remove a lot of shame that people feel when they discuss these things. And so that's really incredible. I really wanted to start off the podcast first by asking you, like, when did you like even realize like mental health is a thing? Like, where does like that mental health journey started for you?
A lot of what I discuss will come from a lot of privilege, because I am a privileged person, no matter which side of the spectrum you look at, whether it's class or caste or opportunities. And a lot of my family lives in Australia, and one of my mamas basically was diagnosed with ADHD, and it's very clear now in hindsight that ADHD runs in my family a lot, right? And my mama, I was visiting Australia once, and my mama looked at me and obviously looked at the way I talk and the way I move around, and he saw a lot of himself. And he told my mom and my parents, "Okay, I think you should get him tested and see ADHD." And my dad was at that moment, this was 15 years ago. Okay? a long time ago, and he's just like, no, there's nothing wrong with him. He's not crazy. And there wasn't that much of understanding of what ADHD is, and what it actually means, what autism is, right? At that time, it just seems like such a word that uh, would just create havoc.
Negative connotation with it for no, like, yeah.
And this is really interesting, right? It comes from a lot of what I call the Raja Beta syndrome. Um,
Yeah.
a lot of times, men, and I can talk only from the male perspective. A lot of time, men in India don't realize they have these problems because they don't face these problems. For example, when I was living with my parents, I would wake up and my coffee was ready. When they realized I'm waking up, my my house help, my mom, they knew I needed to go get to work by 9. So at 8 o'clock, the coffee was ready. I woke up, I had my coffee, I put it down, I went for my bath, right? So at that time, I take out my clothes, etc. And by the time I'm out, I know breakfast is ready, right? So I don't get to eat. And then, certain things like the, the shoe polishing or anything that needed to be taken care of was already taken care of because somebody had come home and taken care of it, or my dad had given it to the cleaners, or my suits to the cleaners. धोबी से सामान आ गया था, धोबी को पैसा देना है कि नहीं. I
You don't care. Yeah, you're not like, it's not something that's crossing your mind. It's taken care of.
Absolutely. So a lot of problems that I realized that I had ADHD never occurred to me because every possible barrier that could occur with this kind of disorder was being padded and taken care of by a support system that you have around, right? So the first time I actually felt the effects is when I moved out of home, right? I moved out of home, I got married, and I was suddenly a mess. I was forgetting breakfast. I wasn't having getting enough time to work out. I had to, take care of bills, etc., which was fine. My parents at that time, it's not like I didn't, contribute to the house, but
The logistics is what you didn't have to get into. It wasn't like the money or anything else. It was just like a lot of these things that take our mental energy, these were taken care of.
exactly. So I started missing, due dates, and at that point, obviously, the burnout was very quick. And I then, at that point, didn't really point my finger that it's ADHD, right? I had a inkling that something's wrong with, because I started feeling really depressed. Um, and at that time, though mental health wasn't really spoken about, this was around 10 years ago, the conversation around depression was pretty high. So um, I managed to go. The first wrong thing I did, which is wrong in hindsight now, is the first thing I did was go to a psychiatrist instead of a therapist. Okay, I need to go to a doctor to figure out what's wrong with me, and instead of figuring out whether something's wrong with me through conversation and what needs to happen, I went to someone who gives medicine, right? So I went to this doctor, very senior, etc. But mental MHAs in India, there's a big issue around how they look at mental health and ADHD and a lot of other things. So I got misdiagnosed having depression and anxiety for years. And I bounced around from psychiatrist to psychiatrist and therapist to therapist, trying to figure out, okay, this medicine is not working. And I stuck to it. I'm going to get through this. Okay, if this salt and this medicine doesn't work, I'm going to go to the next medicine. I'm going to make sure that I get well. And they always tell you, oh, you have to give it 3 months or 6 months for this med to work. And I was just, okay, I'm going to do that. But nothing really worked. It really numbed me out. And the possibility that I could be misdiagnosed never really occurred, right? That really affected me and made things worse because I just thought, okay, this is my life right now, right? And changing your body and taking medicine that is not actually dealing with the right problem affects you in the long run. And during that journey, when I actually did go back to Australia and did meet MHAs who had experience with ADHD and said, hey, listen, you have ADHD, we know it, but you need to be tested in your own country, right? You're a tourist here because I was a tourist there. You will not be able to afford the mental health care over here. go back and try to find a MHA who specializes in ADHD. When I went through that channel and I got tested here and I got my medication, that is when my life changed, right? And I realized that okay, I'm not depressed. I don't have anxiety. Depression and anxiety were a byproduct of being burnt out with ADHD not being treated, right? That was a long journey, and that's how it's. So from a relative telling me that hey, it is genetic, it is family. Yeah, you may have what I have. It's not like he's trying to do something, and at the time because people just didn't know or have enough knowledge about it, it went to something. Oh, his daily life is in his career is great, he's doing well at work, he's doing everything right because everything around me was given to me in on a silver platter, right? And I just had to concentrate on one task, which was just work, and I was doing great, till a time when all of that support was taken away and I had to do everything a normal person would basically do. And that's why I keep saying that I'm privileged, because this was something that everybody should be doing, but I was a Raja Beta, right? And when that got taken away, I realized that shit, I have a disability, I have a disorder which I cannot function with. I need help. Then getting diagnosed with depression and anxiety, and that affecting relationships and the way I look at relationships, to getting on the right medication. And then, like I tell everybody right now, I'm thriving in whatever way. I'm burnt out for different other reasons in career, etc. But when it comes to the ADHD part, it's I'm and I just want to let people out there, please understand that this was a 15-year journey. And the reason I'm even doing this podcast, and you tell me, why, I'm very vocal about everything I do, etc., is because I really hope that the next generation doesn't have a 15-year journey. I'm not saying it, people start diagnosing and getting things right, but I hope that 10 becomes 15 becomes
Life
10.
becomes 6 months becomes, yeah. I have a few takeaways. I think some of the things are really interesting that you talked about. So I have ADHD myself. I'm on medication for my ADHD. Only when I literally, like, the doctor took me seriously and diagnosed me, and then they were able to run some tests and they figured out I have like a really terrible debilitating ADHD, and I was put on medication. And so the medication, she told me, take it on days when you have a lot of work and you feel like it'll become overwhelming for you, because we get burnout a lot. And that was sort of helping, sort of not helping. And then she said, you know what, do one thing, just take this medication for 3 months straight every day and then see. And in those 3 months, I realized that I am extremely capable of doing everything that I used to doubt myself on. And it was purely the fact that I was not medication for a condition that I have. It's like if somebody has diabetes and they're not giving them insulin, and for 3 months they're struggling to live their lives, and then once they get on medication and they said, like, yeah, I can go for a run, I can make my food, I can do my work. And it's just like, it was just that you were not getting insulin. Similarly, I was just not getting the medication for my ADHD. And the way that it impacts your overall mental health when you don't get the right support for ADHD, it looks like anxiety, it looks like depression, although it could also be those things with it. But a lot of it comes out from the fact that you're made to feel you're inadequate or lazy or unmotivated, when all the while you have a executive dysfunction, you have like almost a paralysis, you cannot fight on your own, like you need the right support, whether it's through therapy, whether it's through family, friends, partners, or whether it's through medication if necessary.
And sometimes it's just the diagnosis itself, right? You change the way you look at yourself, which is so important. And sometimes a lot of people say, oh, but I don't want to take medication, I don't want to go to therapy. I'm like, that's fine. At least figure out that, hey, you have a disorder that you are fighting, so that you beat yourself up a little less, and you can make your journey a little bit kinder on yourself, rather than take medication. Because I'm not saying that, oh, everybody should be medicated or everybody should go to therapy if they don't have the financial or support to do so, but at least knowing yourself better is always going to help you on whatever journey you take.
You're absolutely right. At the same time, I also feel like sometimes finances being a problem for a lot of people where they cannot access mental health care. This has been something that I have been very, very cognizant about. Around 7, 8 years ago, when I started creating this list of mental health practitioners, there were like three different lenses for me when I started creating it. First, it be affordable. Second, that the therapists be queer formative. And third, that the therapy they provide is from a feminist lens. And I have kept that ethos for the last 7 years, which is why we don't have all the therapists on the list, or we are not going to have all the therapists on our website. But the people who will be with us will be formative and, like, give that kind of inclusive care, which is extremely and critically important to me. And in terms of affordability also, we have like therapists who can provide therapy at like 500 rupees also. And we are launching sliding scale and pro bono slots for people who cannot afford therapy at all. So hopefully for those cases they can apply to us and we can find them even free therapy sessions or really, really nominal therapy sessions, because this is such a deep passion of mine that we make mental health accessible for people less privileged than us, and that should not be a barrier. So the hope is that the people who want therapy can still take therapy even if they can't afford a 2000, 3000 rupee therapy, right? As fast as like a woman would.
If you're in a traditional household, which again, I have nothing against and I love as well, because people are happy and that is what they choose in their life. When you're in a traditional household and you are in a setup where the wife is a wife, and she's taking care of the things around with, an army of help that they can hire or they can afford to hire. Again, the man is never gonna actually face the right issues that will make him realize at that point that he needs that kind of understanding of himself. And somebody will say, okay, so why is that important? Because if he's never going to face that problem, because ADHD is not only about executive dysfunction, it can come out as rage. So ADHD at the point, people are really discussing on what if it really should be called ADHD, because it just means that, oh, I'm this wacky and really hyperactive person, and it's basically a dysregulation of your dopamine, which obviously controls your emotions, which also controls rage.
Impulsivity, you end up taking really bad decisions.
I used to not drive for the longest because I felt like I had road rage issues, right? Getting really frustrated, and after medication, I do nothing but drive, and I do it right. It's the fact that I wasn't able to control my emotions and the dysregulation, and that happens in relationships. There's so many times when a man is going to say something to their partner or their mother or their father or anybody in the house help or the colleague, as a manager, they're going to start managing the team because they're not able to have days where they can regulate their dopamine or be function. And that could have such harsh implications on their career, on their interpersonal relationships, on how they view themselves. It is important still, even if you're in a traditional household and you're getting the support you need, to not have executive dysfunction, but to get diagnosed and to see if there are ways where you can catch yourself off, oh shit, even if you don't want medication, right? Oh, okay, you know what? I think I need to figure out where I am right now because I am reacting in a way that I don't think I would on a normal circumstance. And that is also really important. And I've seen friends who are women who are always belittled by their parents or society as such के अरे यार ये तो बहुत difficult लड़की है,
Yes,
not doing what she needs to, or she wakes up late, or doesn't have the same uh,
a very
schedules.
long part of my life. Yes.
Yeah, and that is also such a cruel way to view yourself later on in life, right? That I am just that difficult person. That's just how I am. You're actually just dysregulated.
It causes a lot of relationship issues with yourself. So actually getting a diagnosis, and like you were saying, no, that, oh, it's like even if you're not taking therapy or even if you're not taking medication, just knowing what you have and what you're going through, and then sort of looking back at the last years of your life with a different point of view, that, oh, all of these things, oh, it wasn't because of this reason, it was just because I have ADHD, which wasn't diagnosed. A lot of hate goes away because now it's a huge sigh of relief. It's a huge burden off your chest because you're like, oh God, it was this, and I was just at all points beating myself up, but I just actually needed help and a diagnosis.
And it's the way people look at it as well, right? For example, I have two stories, right? One is of a friend of mine who was really into sports, and he got an injury on his ankle. As soon as that injury happened, there were 10 people around us saying that I know the best physiotherapist for you, right? Charges 1,000 a session, go for 3 4 months, they'll fix that ACL or whatever it is immediately. This one was like, I don't go to that one. I've got someone I know he charges 3,000, but the the type of test they run, etc., is great. And he said, yeah, this was such a normal thing to do because the pain. It's an injury, so but was it really hampering his day-to-day life? No, he couldn't play football, right? It was a pain. It did need to get fixed, yes, right? But it's the same with mental health, isn't it? But the problem is that nobody knows these therapists. Nobody has that one therapist that I know. Array, I know what's happening. ADHD. Here are five doctors that I know, or therapists that I know. Arey, don't go to that one. I know another better one who's closer, who'll charge only 1,500. Nobody says that. Nobody has that has never come up in conversation. And if it does come in conversation, it's a very small group of 3 to 4 friends who know about mental health. That's one. And the second one was very similar about gastro. Like that was my story. The stomach one. I had stomach issues for a while, and people were perfectly all right with giving me so many home remedies, how to fix my day schedule, how to go to this doctor, eat in the morning, sabjiyan ko bhiga ke have in the morning before you don't have coffee. But when it comes to mental health, they're like, Acha, oh, yeah, I best of luck with that. I don't know what to say. And I just believe that conversation needs to change around people, right? Yeah, but why is my stool
More comfortable for you to talk about than my ADHD.
hell? That is so awkward, right? That people are asking me, okay, are your stools okay and all, and these are I'm just like, they're fine, but you don't want to talk about me just having a little bit of trouble with my mental health, which was something, and this comes back to why I talk about my journey a lot online. And right now I'm trying to make it palatable for people by talking about it through memes, etc. Right? And people are just like, oh, everybody has a little bit of ADHD. I'm like,
No.
but I'm just like, that's a better thing to say right now than to say that it's not something that exists.
Trust me, there is no such thing as a little. If you have ADHD, trust me, you will know. And once you know, you will be like, the last 20 years of my life could have gone so much better if only I had known. So, yeah, I know people love to say this. Oh, everyone's a little depressed. Oh, everyone's a little autistic. Oh, everyone's a little this. No, trust me, they're not. If they have it, they have it. If they don't, they don't. And only if you go through it or understand a close family or a friend or somebody going through it would you have more empathy and understanding of that.
Yeah, but the thing is that sometimes that's where it comes from, right? Obviously the two spectrums of this, where people say they have a little bit of ADHD, and people like us really don't want them to say that. But I tend to lean towards letting them say that, so that when the conversation becomes like, I have a little bit of ADHD because my room's a little messy, I'm just like, yes, that's true. But remember those days where they're messy and you're in bed and you're screaming at yourself internally because you cannot get up and clean your bed, and you are so frustrated and you hate yourself for 2 days, and you've tried to figure out how to do work and you can't do it, and they're like, uh, that has never happened to me.
So friend, you don't have ADHD.
No, but what happens over here
But
is
then
that
you
I
get
allow
you
them
having
to,
that conversation.
yeah, I allow them to say that, so that they can feel a little bit of empathy or relatability, and realize that fine, you may have a little bit of ADHD. If you want to believe that, that's great. But this is the level of ADHD that I have, and I would love for you to empathize with me over here. The day I believe in the conversation, we start telling people that no, you don't have ADHD at all, you're removing them from the conversation completely, and the relatability and empathy levels really go away because they feel like they don't belong in this space to talk about it. Though there's a whole spectrum of how do we have this conversation. Is I feel first we need to bait them, reel them in, catch them, and say, yeah, yeah, you understand this, right? You understand this meme, you understand this joke. Now let me tell you the flip side, dark side of it on how bad it can get, right? And while you're on this boat with me, please understand that I'm paddling a lot harder than you are, which is something I just need you to understand.
That's fair, and I think, I mean, it works differently for different people. If that is something that's working, educate other people, I think that's great. I want to stay on the topic of having these difficult conversations, but I want to change what we are talking about a little bit. So you identify yourself as a queer individual, right? And you also are in a polyamory relationship, and it's on the public life, like people can see it, interact with it, you speak about it, etc. I wanted to understand your journey in that regards a little bit, if it had any implications on your mental health, your relationships with your family and the community at large, and like what kind of impact has it had on you.
So, like, this is something I tell a lot of people again when no, I'm very privileged. When I came out as a queer, as bisexual, I was 30, 31 or whatever it was, and I was already at a very high position in my career. I was the chief video officer of a big MNC company agency where they champion the fact that they have diverse leadership, right? What the terminology right now is that they're a left-leaning company, and they were really happy with the fact that I was out, so it wasn't a problem. When it comes to my family, I was already married, right? I legally married to my wife Shweta, and when I came out, the first question they had was, "Are you divorcing Shweta?" And I said, "No. This is how I am. This is how I identify, and I just need people to understand that and that journey." And they're like, "Oh, you're not." What they heard was, "You're not divorcing."
Oh, it's fine.
So when it came to me being queer, me being bisexual, and talking about it, it didn't hurt me in my career. I was already earning enough, and the job, the people I was working with had not only didn't have a problem. They were just like, "Great, we can tick mark a queer
Individual
diversity."
in an organization, yeah. Hmm.
Parents and my family were just like, "Oh, so Shweta knows about it, and this is how you understand yourself better, and you're not leaving her because we love her very much. That's great. So as long as you both are happy, that's fine for us." And when people see I'm gonna talk about the polyamory part, but I want to talk about this part first. So when people come up to me and I go to events where I'm talking about this, and they're just like, very young individuals come up to me and say, "I'm so inspired by a story. I'm gonna come out to my parents and hi, Kitty." So,
That was Max. Sorry, yeah, please continue.
when I go to these events and these young individuals come up to me and they're like, "Oh, I'm so inspired by a story. I'm gonna come out to my parents." And the first question I ask them is, "Why?" And they said, "Oh no, because I want to live my own truth, and you give me the courage to come out of the closet." I was just like, "Okay, are you financially independent?" And they're like, "No, I'm doing my MBA. This is a true story." And I said, "Okay, if you're doing your MBA, who's paying for your MBA?" "My parents." I like, "Okay, if you lose your scholarship, if you look at your parents as someone who's giving you a scholarship to go to study, do you have a job to fall back on? Do you have friends, queer friends or friends who have the capacity to house you for 6 months at a time? No. Do you have enough money that if you don't have any of these, that you can survive 6 months without a job, get a house, live somewhere, and sustain yourself?" They're like, "No." And like in a country like India, it's not only about courage, right? It's courageous to not say something as well. It's courageous to persevere through a time when you have enough power to rightfully come out and live your truth. It's not about just in the moment being inspired to do so. You really need to think about life as such. And when people do want to come out, and the reason I talk about my queer journey as such a lot is because I need people to be safe when they do come out, and to understand that when I came out, I was financially independent, had my own place. If I lost my job 6 months, nobody could touch me. It didn't matter. I didn't need to help, and I would get a job somewhere or the other because of the experience I have. It's very difficult to try to explain this to the community because they're like, no, 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 that's not a, there's always a support system, and which never really comes out or feels out. And I do understand that there are people who don't have the luxury to wait or persevere. Um, I completely respect that too. But when people do come to me for advice, this is my opinion and advice that, to for the sake of your mental health, for the sake of anything that you have, and your own safety, not everybody has the privileges someone like me or anyone who is out and proud at the moment on social media and being an influencer can have. Because even if people come from different caste locations and different class locations but are out and being influencers, please look at the friends they have around them. Please look at the support system that they have around them. Even if the family is not supporting them, they must have a support system or have understood how to live their life in a way that their financial and mental health is taken care of. Inspiration comes from the fact to be inspired to live your truth, but also I wish there were people out there who are teaching and advising people on how exactly to get there.
Sort of agree with you in terms of in India, it's not a very simple decision. While it's not a simple decision anywhere in the world, but especially in India, because there are a lot of social implications, there are a lot of financial implications, there are implications within your workplace, your family, your community. And so, safety becomes also one of your priorities when you're thinking of coming out. And yeah, that sort of is an important discussion to have, that make sure they're doing it in a safe way, that you can take care of yourself, that you're safe. And also feel like at the same time, uh, we need to be building a lot more of these communities where if there is someone in a position where they want to come out and they don't feel safe coming out, they at least have somebody to fall back on or a network of people to fall back on. And that, I think, that community building at the same time as advising people that be safe is also important, so that at one point, let's say 10 years from now or 20 years from now, a person doesn't have to think about it and they're just like, yeah, I'm queer, I want to talk about it, and they can just come out. And so that's the dream, that the way we create this community where people do feel safe talking about it and being able to do this.
That's where mental health comes in. So when I was coming out, I did go to therapy. I did understand how I could navigate it. Even though people were supportive, I still needed it. I still needed to figure out, okay, what does it mean for me? Sometimes it's just a space to understand yourself a little bit better using the right tools given by a professional. Because most professionals, at least in my experience, aren't there to tell you how to live your life. They're there to give you the tools to come up with the answers yourself. When someone does that, you do come up with the answers yourself. You have the time, space, and energy to live your life in a safer way.
In fact, some of the therapists that are on board with us are queer themselves, and hopefully we'll get a few of them on the podcast as well to talk more about from their lens. Like as queer individuals providing therapy for a lot of queer individuals, and that'll be interesting for us to talk about, because you're so right. Like that kind of support, if we can get that from a mental health professional, especially if they're queer themselves and they truly understand it, because in India it's a different ball game when you queer yourself, and then able to guide you to take the right steps, or sort of at least be okay with your decision, right? Because a lot of times I have seen in my own friend circle, or just the people I follow online, the kind of implications they've had about coming out. People have lost their jobs, they have been their families have sort of stopped talking to them, and they have struggled financially, they have struggled socially, and it's really heartbreaking to see that lack of support, because then the mental health goes completely for a toss. And I've seen it especially for trans individuals, because again in India, like being trans is such a huge stigma, I would say, even more than a different sexual orientation. Having a different gender expression is even more difficult in India. And the implications and the mental health impact is really great. So the hope is that we create more and more support systems, get the right therapist, get people like you talking about it, get other people talking about. The more we talk about these kinds of things, the better it gets for everyone. Like I would say, if I compare this to my own mom, like in the last 15 years, her journey of understanding queer people and trans people, and the progress of understanding it, and the acceptance of understanding it is absolutely crazy for me to witness, because uh, she might have been taught to, grow up to sort of not understand queer people, trans people, sort of have biases against and also stereotypes against them. And because I have been talking about it for such a long time, mental health and queer and like all of those things are just like me being me. I've been having these discussions with my family for like close to 15 years, and now if you talk to her today, she will tell you, oh yeah, it's their life, they're allowed to live the life they want to live, and as long as their personal decisions do not impact me, why should I care about what makes them happy? And that journey to even reach here has only happened through education, and it's happened because people are talking about it, or like this podcast or your social media page, or like hundreds and thousands of other queer individuals, trans individuals using their social media to talk about being their authentic selves. And this is creating a true impact. It is a real mental health positive impact on people, because we make it safer for people to come out when we do this. So sort of progressing from that same conversation, you've had your ADHD debate, that was a thing you dealt with, then you realized you're queer, you talked about it, and that was something that happened. And then the third thing that happened is that you realized, oh, I'm poly. And then I know you sort of got into a polyamorous relationship, and it's, and you, all three of you, like you call it, are the tripod, which is a very cute term, by the way. It's very cute. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? I'm sure it wasn't super easy for you to do it publicly or with your family as well, right?
Yeah, so that was one part. That's why I want to, keep the conversation separate, because the queer part was actually easier for me than the polyamory part, right? Polyamory is something that is a choice. It's a lifestyle choice that you live, and when it's a choice that you've made, it's more difficult for people to understand in that particular way. Okay, why are you making life in society a little bit more difficult? um, are you doing this? And sometimes you don't even have the answer. You like, okay, this is something that this is a way I want to live. I do love more people, and my partner, my wife, and other people are okay with it. This is the lifestyle I want to live. That's where judgment starts coming in. There's a lot of generalization which happens, and it is difficult to defend as well, because polyamory is so new, and because polyamory isn't understood in a particular way. People are bound to make mistakes, right? And when people make mistakes, or there's toxicity and any type of relationship system, it's amplified as everybody and polyamory is bad. Whereas, if you do tend to be monogamous, there are similar ways and similar problems that occur in monogamy. There are similar problems that occur in toxicity that occur in monogamy. But because polyam is a more new concept that people don't really understand, and even the people who are polyamorous don't understand completely, and they're making mistakes which are a little bit more public, it tends to be amplified in a way that polyam is bad. And what happens with that is that when you tell people that you're polyam, they already have a misconceived notion of the type of lifestyle that you lead. And that was something that we had to deal with a lot. We still do. A lot of times we say no to interview, like it is Valentine's Day, coming up, etc. Right? A lot of magazines and a lot of other places were just like, oh, we want to feature you guys as a new type of love and a new relationship. And every time we do that, it's nothing but hate messages, below that. Because if you talk about me being bisexual, people are going to be like, okay, that's homophobic. I can't say that really, but I can bash this polyam person because I don't believe in their lifestyle, and it'll be okay because it's a choice that you guys are leading, right? And I'm yet to understand why people do have a problem with someone else's polyam, and whether it makes them nervous about their own lifestyle, or if it somehow threatens the way they live, which I don't understand. I don't think it does. But the journey with polyam took a lot, and does take a lot in trying to make people understand what we do and how we do it. Again, very privileged that I am a man with two, at least Tanisha's non-binary, but cis woman passing, and Shweta, who's a woman. So it just looks like a man with two women, right? which in the society, Indian society or any other society, from a lot of cultural aspects, is still acceptable or norm. Or the guy is lucky, right? He has two relationships. So it's still a little bit more palatable for people to understand. But as soon as we start going into polyamory, when it comes to queer individuals or individuals, one woman with maybe two men or different genders together, then it's just mixed and misconceived, and the man being a cuck, or the relationship degraded upon because of the gender identity everybody has, or it's looked at as a queer problem that is happening. And that's a constant battle that we will keep facing. And I do not believe, no matter how optimistic an individual you think I am, or come across as, that it is something that's going to be solved in my lifetime. And it's a problem that we're going to keep facing. That is why, again, it's a journey where mental health is going up and down, which helps when you do have the right tools through therapy or through other means or support systems, where you can figure out everything yourself. Because hey, like at my age, if I were to go through a few failed relationships, and they were monogamous relationships, it'd be just like, oh, that's sucky, I hope you find happiness. But if I tell you right now, or if I go out right now, then in the past 1 year I've had two breakups, right? You already have two women that you live with. Why do you want to date and then break up? वो क्या है? तुम लोग बस ऐसे ही मजे उड़ा रहे हो यार. We- Sure. Don't give me fuck all problems to talk about, etc. I will never be able to talk about it. I will never be able to, and those failed relationships will just be looked at as it failed because of polyamory, and that because you're polyamorous. It didn't fail because of other reasons. And that is a constant problem, again, a small problem to have, but a problem that you keep facing, because you can't really talk about those relationships as openly as you would other relationships. And there's no closure in a way that you can publicly figure out that, okay, I've been through a breakup, or I've had a failed relationship, without someone who is not polyam look at you and say, hey, maybe it's polyamory, right? Because that's the only solution they have, because they look at polyamory as
Like they don't think that you deserve empathy for your breakup because they don't provide the same empathy. I feel like if versus if you were like just breaking up with a woman in a straight relationship and you were not queer.
I don't think it's empathy as much as it is that a lot of individuals, especially in India, when you talk to them and you come up to them and say that this has happened, them not having a solution because they don't understand the problem, is that, okay, the only solution I can come up with right now is polyamory in itself is a problem. So stop that, right? So they're trying to actually, in their life, in their sense, be helpful, right? That I'm telling you, you can't see it right now. यार तू गलत रास्ते पे चल रहा है. Come back, because that's all they can figure out to make you happy. And sometimes that is empathy too, right? A friend trying to figure out, hey, I don't understand this problem, and I think that this is not right. Why don't you come back to the light side, and live this life in a more systematic way, because this is what we always know. And that is the biggest issue, and will continue to be an issue, because monogamy has been around for eons.
Yeah. I mean, it's been like ancient texts and books have it.
And polyamory is a little bit more new and fluid, which is different from polygamy, which existed. So people get confused in that too. So when they don't understand it, and they don't will not continue to understand it, and when it's not protected by many laws and many other things, it's bound to, at least in my, like I said, in my lifetime.
Be misunderstood a lot. Yeah, I feel like Ashish, I am monogamous and I am happy being monogamous. But at the same time, if there is a person who is in a polyamorous relationship, and all of the individuals in that relationship are consenting adults who are happy and thriving, and that's what they want to do, then it's not my place or my job to question them. It's their life. But at the same time, I feel like in polyamory relationships, why a lot of misunderstandings come to be is because Indian men sometimes use the tag of being polyamory to sort of also cheat on their wives and girlfriends, where it is not consensual and it is not, like, for example, your relationship, it's great, right? Everybody has the consent, they're happy, they're equal decision makers, they are contributing to that relationship. But if you see, and a lot of people that I've talked to is like that, men would go on dating apps, and they would, their wives or their girlfriends or their partners would not even know that they're seeking other relationships. And that's where I think a lot of misguided hate also comes in, because people don't probably see that, oh, it's also possible to have good, happy, healthy polyamory relationships. They're looking mostly it as, oh, it's just a man finding a way to cheat on their partner or girlfriend, right? What do you think about that? Is that something that you have faced? Like, is that something that people have told you, or is just a convenient way for you to, cheat on your wife or anything?
That is a huge problem in general. But if it's not polyam, those men are going to find different ways to cheat, etc. Right? Right now, it is the fact that they're using the polyam label, and that's where the bigotry of polyamory comes into space. And there's no solution to it. There is nothing I can do to change that. There's nothing. Anyone who's in the polyam circle is going to be able to change that, because how do you control Indian men? If we had a solution to that, a lot of problems would have gone away a long time ago. When you are getting into a relationship, and when you are in engaging with someone who says that they're polyamorous, to ask the right questions, to seek out the right flags that you see, and then only engaging in that. And it is completely okay to not engage with anyone who identifies their lifestyle as polyamorous, because of these fears. And I don't look at that as a wrong thing to do at all.
I think, again, I feel like the more we talk about it, the better it gets, because then you start asking questions, right? And you feel comfortable asking questions to yourself or to those near and, dear to you, who may have a different life than you, but engaging in a good, like, the intentions, if they're good, then I feel like even the questions don't feel intrusive, etc. It's more sometimes about coming from a bad faith, and you're just kind of trying to attack other people rather than sort of understand them. And I feel like if we have more positive examples where we can see that all the people involved in that relationship are, happy, and they're there by choice, and they're all care about each other, like, those are really important things to, I think, see. Because then by example you sort of unlearn a lot of, I have in the last few years unlearned a lot about just my biases against polyamory myself. So I would say that is also really important. So the fact that you're doing it is great, and I think if we have more people to do it.
Well, that's the thing. The problem over here when it comes to polyamory or queer individuals or trans individuals is that the responsibility to talk about it, right, and normalize it falls on the shoulders of the very few. And the burnout for that is going to be very real. The responsibility without any sort of respite is very real. Like when a lot of people, especially during Pride Month, etc., right, you're going to see the same queer individuals being the spokesperson. And to be honest, I'm happy that corporates are looking at pride, so at least the queer individuals get paid. But during the year, so much of the emotional labor is put on to people who can talk about it or try to normalize it. And I believe that institutions and therapists too, and a lot of other people who aren't queer, who aren't polyamorous, should speak about it, so that the labor is divided and they can educate themselves a lot better by having these conversations and becoming the loudspeakers for different identities. Nobody's going to master everything. So, for example, if you want to be, if you're an individual who has a friend who is polyamorous and does understand it, if you start talking about it in a particular way with their consent, it helps. If you know someone who's bisexual and understands that lifestyle and what the struggles are like, and if you're talking about it and spreading the word, that helps. And the issue isn't that it's not being spoken about. The issue is that it's being spoken about by a select few who have courage, perseverance, and privilege to be able to talk about it. But that is also going to die out very quickly if the allyship isn't understood in a way. Because a lot of people say, my parents, your parents, or whoever it is, as long as it's not affecting my life, I'm happy if they're happy. It's not good enough anymore because you may say that live and let live, but the institutions aren't going to say live and let live till you start talking about it for us, with us. And I think that's where we should be taking our next journey, is putting the onus on allies to be allies and to talk about it in our.
Good luck, Ashish. I mean, yeah, I mean, we can hope, of course, and not to say that there aren't any allies who would do this, but it's
Yeah, I know.
like, see, every step is a step, I would say. Every single person who remains their authentic self, whether they are publicly talking about it or not, I think that's a step. I think everybody speaking about it, that's a step. I think allies, even the fact that you could stop a friend from cracking a queerphobic joke or a homophobic joke, that's a step. Like all of these little things do end up sort of, creating an overall larger cultural shift. And it's like you said, it's not an overnight thing for sure. It's a long shot, but like.
And it's never enough. So
So tell me, Ashish, then your queer identity and being in a polyam relationship and doing it on social media, has it affected mental health for you or your partners? And like, um, did you guys need to take a step back to work on your mental health? Like what kind of was the game plan or the way you guys dealt with it? I'm sure it was not easy. I'm sure there were a lot of trolls and
yeah, I can't speak for my partners, but I took a step back from a lot of social media stuff, especially on Twitter, because when people found out that I'm polyam and as a throuple, being in a relationship with someone like Tanisha, who is younger than me, and younger than me and Shweta, because she's in a relationship with Shweta as well. There were a lot of attacks that were coming to our space without even realizing what the power dynamics looked like, right? Um, and that affected me a lot. And now I'm in a position where Tanisha's my boss, right? So, founded Sangya and everything together, and we are active in this on the social media space for Sangya, to educate people a lot. But all the stuff that you know this that I used to do with my dogs, and I used to tweet and post a lot on Instagram, etc. That has completely stopped, because every time I did post or did want to post about my life, there was a lot of hate comments that used to come in. Whereas I do post with the verified profiles that I have now. They're all curated. They're all run by agencies. I have two profiles. One is my personal profile, and one is a profiles which run.
the more public profile. Yeah,
Other profile is run by agencies, and also the comments are you know taken care of,
moderated,
rated,
check.
such as.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's better to post there, but that is also died down a lot because of this. Every time I do try to talk about something where it's a little talking about masculinity, or talking about queerness, or talking about polyamory, or talking about sex, or talking about anything that is part of my life, I never understand why someone's life is up for debate, and choices are up for debate, um, when what I'm trying to do by posting online is exhibiting my life, trying to talk about it, not to change people's perspective, just to let people know that I exist, but it becomes a debate on whether I should exist or not, which is a
Which
problem.
is like not your place.
Confusing when you do that, right? If I want to talk about, oh my God, a throuple date that we went on to celebrate an anniversary, and suddenly in the comments, I'm not looking for congratulations. I'm trying to share with the world a piece of my life, and that's what social media is for. In the comments, it becomes about, oh my God, I would never be able to do this, or this is such a weird thing. This is just like cheating, or this relationship will never last, even though it's been 7 to 10 years now, but of us together. and we run a company together, but they will never, they 20 years, they'll still be saying the same thing. Either they'll say that, oh, this is a one-off, or they'll still look at, okay, it's not going to last longer than this. This is a period. They're just putting it on because they're together. A lot of comments like that come on, right? So what do you do then? Do I post about my life? Do I tell you what I'm doing in my life? Or do I stop posting and start curating it in a way that I'm talking about something else entirely, right? And so yes, social media is the biggest factor. If I talk about where are your mental health issues, or where are the problems coming up in your mental health, or which is affecting your mental health, social media is number one.
Ashish, you have not taken the easy route out. The fact that you've been have spoken about it, not just on your personal pages, but then also on Sangya. You post with Tanisha, you post with Shweta, and you do a lot of like sex education, kink education, safe practices, etc. So all of those little things that you do talk about, whether it's polyamory or whether it's sex and intimacy or anything, none of these are easy and simple topics to talk about in India. So
They're not.
you're living life on hard mode. Okay. So
I honestly don't. I know it looks like that. I know it looks like that, and I say that it's a problem. But please, again, for the viewers who are and the listeners who are going to read and watch this, I am an upper caste, upper class individual, a family who has accepted us and comes from a very rich background. I live in the most affluent places that I can. I was living in Churchgate and Colaba for the longest time because I could on my own uh, earnings, because I was earning that much. And now also Sangya is one of the top three startups in sexual wellness in India. I am no way an inspiration to do or say that I'm living life on a hard mode. It is hard. It is hard. A lot of people have it a lot tougher, and I just want them to know that, please, the questions that I asked and I told you about in the starting of this podcast, about whether you're financially capable enough to take the steps that needed, have the support, have the therapy, have the safeguards around you to do, or talk about the things I do talk about, till that are not checked off. Please don't make any decisions, and please understand that it's okay to persevere a little bit. That takes courage, a lot more courage than taking an impulsive leap. What I would like you to take away from any conversations that I have is to learn more about yourself and ask the questions about yourself that will help you on your journey to figure out what you want from life, not to take public steps the way I do.
completely fair what you're saying, and 110% the privilege has played a huge role in terms of how still smooth your life goes, despite the fact that you're queer, you're in a poly relationship, you talk about it publicly. The family background, the financial background, your education, everything plays a huge role. You being upper caste, you being sort of straight passing in the world, all of these, I 100% agree with you on all of those things. I was coming more from the lens of the fact that because you do talk about all of these things, you're up for grabs in terms of uh, people can say whatever they
Yeah,
want to you
yeah,
on the comments, whether it's on Sangya's page or your
yeah,
pages, etc., or to your partners as well, and sort of that may affect a person's mental health a lot, because like I said, these are not easy topics to talk about. As soon as you go into talking about queerness, talking about polyamory, talking about sex, kink, all of those things, then suddenly all the bars are off. You're like, oh, he's talking about sex, I can say anything to him. And then they sort of say a lot of things they wouldn't usually come up to you in, like, nobody's gonna walk up to me in real life and say those things to you, but they can do it in the comments on your Instagram pages or your Twitter or whatever. And that might have a mental health impact as well, because they are just saying whatever at this point, right? And that must affect like everybody in the relationship. And I know then you need to take steps that make you feel safer, whether it was you deciding to take a step back from social media because social media was having such a deep negative effect on you. And yeah, so the little things that you would basically do to take a step back. Is there anything else that you did in your real life that sort of was like, created a more safer or more positive sort of effect on you when you were dealing with all of those things?
I'm going to sound like a very big dude, bro, startup bro, but going to the gym.
Oh wow, really? The
um,
endorphins work, huh?
it does. I don't know, a lot of people you'll see it seems like a simple fix, right? Eating healthy and um, working out. Oh, that's a quick fix. Or that's a fix. I'm sorry, but it is. I, at least in my experience, right, and the experiences of people around me, if I don't work out and if I don't eat healthy, it is going to leave devastating effects on my mental health and the support that I have. So the only other thing that I do besides being medicated and having a support system, whether it's professional or family, is the fact that I try my level best to work out for my mental health. I used to, when I started working out because I wanted to be a model. Then I started working out because I wanted to be an Iron Man. Now I work out because I want to have good mental health. And also changes your goals when you're working out and your the way you're eating, etc. Than what you are when you're looking at it just to look good. But if you do work out for your mental health and those goals, trust me, looking good is a byproduct.
You're completely right. Unfortunately, I realized that when I worked out for 3 months straight, and I realized that my mental health has gotten better, and I was like, shit, they were all telling the truth. I wanted to ask you, how has therapy, like specifically taking therapy, been helpful or transformative for you, or has it empowered you in some way? Has it created a positive impact in your life?
I may not have the right answer for you because therapy again has been a journey, just like being misdiagnosed was a journey, right? To find the right individual and therapist who understands, first needs to understand ADHD in itself is a bloody journey, right? Then I need to find a therapist who understands ADHD and understands queerness, right? Then I need to find someone who understands ADHD, understands queerness, and then understands polyamory. Finding this trifecta for me is near impossible. So luckily, a couple of things. Like I'm doing my MA in psychology. I'm becoming a therapist myself. I am getting certified in kink counseling and couples counseling myself. So I have been getting the tools myself to empower others and myself into that. But on my journey to find the right therapist, what I had to do was compartmentalize. So I found a really good therapist who had PhD but didn't understand queerness or polyamory. So I took the tools that they gave me to deal with my ADHD at that particular point, and then I had to find another therapist who understood queerness and polyamory, where they could understand the relationship aspects and may not have understood the ADHD aspect of my life in that particular case, because there are not that many people who are specialized in ADHD, etc. But what's important in this journey and what I've understood is that when you find a therapist who isn't queer, it's fine as long as they're willing to find someone who isn't an ADHD expert, but is willing to put in the effort to do the research themselves, right? Because they're already professionals. They just need to do a little bit of research. It's fine. Don't try to always search for a therapist who already has all of it. Try to go on a journey with them. um, Find the right individual for you. That doesn't mean you keep beating with one therapist who's not willing to put in the work. Understand whether that happens, and just like any relationship, whether it's a therapist, your girlfriend or a friend, it takes some time, and it also takes some time to find the right one as well. So be ready to be get on that journey, and it takes a while. But when you do find it, it will transform you for the better.
That's a really good tip, Ashish, I think, for people. Um, I agree with you. Sometimes it's genuinely about intentions, right? When you have a therapist with the right intentions,
Yeah.
and maybe they understand 60% of your issues, maybe they don't understand the whole 100%.
Yeah.
But if they're genuinely interested in helping you and working with you, they will equip themselves with whatever information and tools they need to give you the right therapy. And that's so important for us to sort of click with the right therapist. Sometimes that happens in the first go, sometimes that happen in the second or third go. I've had a few therapists in my many years since I've been in therapy on and off,
Yeah,
and I have felt the difference when I have clicked with the therapist and realized, oh, they come from such a good place. They come with the right intentions and they're willing to help me even if they don't completely understand me. I also love the fact that you didn't find a right therapist who understood everything and you sort of like, I'll become one. I love that. That's how the list started. Like
yeah,
around 10 years ago when I was struggling with my mental health and I was talking about it and I didn't know where to start. I did not have a resource like this that
yeah,
I needed, and so I made it.
yeah, yeah,
So I love the fact that you did something similar, where I think that'll be really helpful for even for yourself
yeah,
to understand a lot of things from a point of view which like as us as non-professionals we
yeah,
might not understand that a mental health professional would definitely have a stronger insight into.
yeah.
So I love that. So, Ashish, thank you so much for being here with us today. I think so many interesting and insightful things that we were able to touch upon. And thank you for being so honest and just like being let's just talking about it. I love the fact that you are making these things a lot more normalized, a lot more destigmatized.
Thank you for having me and thank you for giving me the platform. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and for those who are watching, if you're struggling with your mental health in any way, we have a bunch of therapists to help you. The intention of this platform is to create inclusive, affirmative therapy for every person at every price point, and we hope that it helps you on your journey. So, thank you, Ashish,
Thank you.
and
Thanks for listening, everyone.